Hello and welcome back to Toby Jones Talks Music. In today's video I'm going to do an album review of my favourite artist, Neil Diamond. We're going to go back to 1971 and review this album, Stones, from 1971. This was released pretty well 12 months to the day after his previous album. So Taproot Manuscript was released on the 6th of November 1970. Stones was released in the 5th of November, so 364 days after, if it wasn't a leap year, after Taproot Manuscript. So some information from Wikipedia on charts and all that sort of thing. So it only went gold in the US. Taproot Manuscript before it went platinum, and every album did afterwards. So a slight sales drop. Every album did afterwards until 1984's Primitive. Some albums went 2 or 3 times platinum, so I'm glad you're here with me tonight. And You Don't Bring Me Flowers went 2 times platinum. It was, however, an improvement in terms of charting position from the previous album. So this went number 11 in the US, Taproot was number 13, and then just for comparison, Touching You, Touching Me went number 30. The others probably were pretty insignificant in terms of the US charts. But this album does only feature 3 out of 9 originals, which is something that is quite unlikely for Neil Diamond, something he hasn't done all that much in his career before or since. So we're going to go through the track list first off. So we've got 9 tracks on this album, if you ignore the reprise of I Am I Said at the end. So you've got I Am I Said. I was going to say the title track. It's not. I Am I Said, which is of course a Neil Diamond composition, and then The Last Thing on My Mind, Husband and Wives, Chelsea Morning, which are 3 covers, and then a Neil Diamond composition to end off the first side, Crunchy Granola Suite. We then have another Neil composition to start the second side, Stones, and then the last 3 tracks, If You Go Away, Suzanne, and I Think It's Gonna Rain Today are all covers, and then there's a reprise of I Am I Said, but I'm going to ignore that really for the sake of this review. Now, in terms of the covers on this album, it does share some comparisons with this. Touching You, Touching Me, because this did feature a few covers. This is 2 albums before Stones, so you had this released in 69, Taproot Manuscript in 70, and then Stones in 71. But this only features 4 out of 10 covers, so if you want to go as a percentage, Stones features 66% covers, so 6 out of 9. This features 40% if you're looking at the UK version, because Sweet Caroline was on this album. It was featured on the UK edition of the album, not the US. But even so, if it's 4 out of 9, then it's slightly higher, but certainly not as high as 66. Sweet Caroline was originally a single, but it was reissued on the US version of Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show. Didn't feature on a UK reissue until 1974, at least according to Discogs anyway, on Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show. Actually, I didn't have a look before this, but I don't think my copy featured it. Where is it now? Here it is. My vinyl of Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show, which I reviewed in the past. Has this got Sweet Caroline on it? I don't think it has. No, it hasn't. But the Sweet Caroline reissue, I have to say, is a far worse album cover as well. I do really like this album cover. It's got a gatefold as well for Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show. But the Sweet Caroline reissue is rather bland, I think it's fair to say, in terms of that cover. But I didn't listen to the vinyl this morning. I listened to it on this, the CD version I've got. So this is Play Me, the complete uni studio recordings, plus, because it features some tracks from Gold and Hot August Night. And I touched upon this in a video last year, so if you want to look at that, go to last year. The only thing that's a bit frustrating with Stones is that 4 of the tracks are on disc 2, the rest of the tracks are on disc 3. But I guess it's similar to vinyl in that you've got to change the disc. So, no biggie. So, interestingly, as I said about the covers thing, no album after this featured such a high percentage of covers. If you look at even this album, September Morn, 5 out of 10 of the tracks were covers, so 50%. And some albums have co-writes, particularly later on in the 80s, and they do have the odd direct cover of previously recorded hits, but none to the extent of this. And we're not counting intentional covers albums like, you know, the movie album and Dreams, this is a decent album as well. So I was trying to really understand why there were so many covers on this album, and I couldn't find a lot of information on the internet. I thought myself possibly because, and it's a well-told story, I'm not going to retell it, about the fact that I Am I Said took a long time to write. I think it was 4 months it took to write that song, and I couldn't find any info on the web about it as to why there are so many covers. And so I went to some Neil Diamond literature. It's almost like doing a university, what would you call it, university essay for this. So I went back to this book, which I read a long time ago by David Wilde, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Neil Diamond. There was diddly squat in here about it. There was a page or two in this, Neil Diamond, the biography by Laura Jackson, which I read earlier in the year. I recommend you go and read that. So to paraphrase page 85 of this, Neil had started to write a film screenplay at this point, so in 1971. And again, apologies, I'm not going to look at the camera, I'm just looking at my notes. As well as focusing on his live performances. So 1971 would feature 7 sold-out concerts at the Greek Theatre, something he would repeat the following year with 10 sold-out concerts at the Greek Theatre, which of course would culminate in this barnstormer of a live album, Hot August Night. So Laura Jackson, the author, seems to think that all his time spent on writing the film screenplay, focusing on live performance, reduced his free time to write original material, hence the lack of originals on this album. But the only thing that comes from the artist, which is an interesting thing and something you have to doff your cap to Neil to, particularly at this point of his career, because I think that later on he didn't necessarily stick to this. But Diamond preferred quality to quantity and chose a broad range of covers as he didn't want to be tied to one style. Something I think you could definitely say about Diamond's career as a whole, and that's me making that comment, not from the book, just to be clear. And an interesting tidbit from this is that Neil sent a copy of his cover of I Think It's Gonna Rain Today to the original writer, Randy Newman. And Newman wrote back saying how much he liked Neil Diamond's version, so that is very much an endorsement for that. Looking after this, just a bit of an interesting thing, I looked at how he played these tracks live, or how many times he played the cover tracks live. Now, one of them does feature on the deluxe edition of this, which again I got for either Christmas or my birthday, the deluxe edition. And I Think It's Gonna Rain Today features on this, but none of the others do. So the Last Thing on My Mind features 29 times, according to Setlist FM, in live performances. Husband and Wives, once. Chelsea Morning, 18 times. No record of If You Go Away on live record. Suzanne once, and I Think It's Gonna Rain Today 14 times, which one of them was on this live album here. So I didn't play the covers that much live at all. So this very much was probably a vehicle for the 3 original Neil Diamond compositions, I Am I Said, Crunchy Granola Suite, and Stones. But even so, the covers do fit in very well here. I don't think there's any rotten apples on this album. If I was to pick the highlights of these, I'd probably go for If You Go Away and I Think It's Gonna Rain Today. The latter, of course, as I've just said, was on Hot August Night, and I would say it's better on Hot August Night. The same goes for Crunchy Granola Suite as well, but given that Crunchy Granola is a lot different on Hot August Night and it opens the album as well, I think it's probably an unfair comparison to give there. The covers here, I would probably say, if we're going to do a comparison to Touching You, Touching Me, looking at this album, so the covers on this album are Everybody's Talking by Fred Neil, Mr. Bojangles, Jeffrey Jeff Walker, Both Sides Now, Joni Mitchell, so Joni Mitchell, Both Sides Now, and Chelsea Morning is on Stones, and then Until It's Time For You To Go, Buffy St. Marie. Don't dislike any of the covers here. I really like Mr. Bojangles on this album. But I think I would probably just about go for the Stones covers as a whole over the tracks on Touching You, Touching Me. So let's have a discussion about the tracks on this album, Stones. So we're going to talk about the 3 Neil Diamond compositions first. So I said I was going to talk about them, but this song really, what is there to say that hasn't already been said about I Said? It is one of Diamond's best songs altogether. Crunchy Granola Suite. The album version, as I said a little bit before, it sounds awfully tame compared to the live version. Still got a good groove on this, but yeah, it is rather tame compared to the live version. Its topic is rather random about granola, and I think it was healthy eating habits in California, really. But Neil has been known to have random song topics. Just look at the Pot Smoker song. Stones, though, is a similar song or a similar sound to other tracks around this Neil Diamond era. So when you look at songs the likes of Glory Road, Sunday Sun, it's another great addition to the discography. Really like the title track to this album. The covers, Last Thing on My Mind, so that's the second track on the album after I Am I Said, good track. Husband and Wives, which follows that, probably my least favourite on the album. Just seems to plod along a bit, this one does. Doesn't really go anywhere. But I wouldn't call it an offensive track. I don't dislike it. The instrumental sections are probably my favourite, which I can't say about much of Neil's stuff. Fortunately, though, track 4, Chelsea Morning, wakes you up. It's a great flowing track to wake you up after Husband and Wives. If You Go Away, I have talked about this track before. I did say earlier that it was one of my favourite 2 on this album. And I've talked about it before in my first ever video on the channel of 10 Neil Diamond songs all music fans should listen to, which is pretty high praise when you think about, at least for me, the quantity of great tracks in Neil Diamond's repertoire. But I still think it does. It still ranks as one of Neil's best tracks. Suzanne, the Leonard Cohen number, another good track, a story song, which fits well, really, with Neil's repertoire, a lot of the tracks in his canon. And then finally, I Think It's Going to Rain Today, which, as I've mentioned, it is better on Hot August Night. Purely from an atmospheric perspective, I think it does feel better on that live album. But again, it fits in well with Neil's music. I have to say that all the covers here, I agree with Neil that he doesn't want to be tied to one style, but they are fairly well chosen. And it's a bit difficult to explain, but this album all does have a similar mould. Some of the other albums beforehand, you could say, probably jump around a little bit from style to style, but there is some sort of coherence that goes all the way through this album. And although he didn't want to be tied to one style, it is difficult to explain. This probably could be a whole video itself, but yes, he had various styles, but he almost had his own style. You couldn't, I don't think, myself at least, you could tie Neil Diamond to the easy listening. You couldn't tie him to the sort of Carpenters. You couldn't call him a rock artist, really. He is his own style. He's had a lot of different types of music in his career. And I'm not talking about stuff as broad as the the African or the world style music that he did on Taproot Manuscripts before this. But he did have a lot of different styles, but it was really his own style that came through. And we're going to ignore some of the the reggae stuff like Reggae Strut or Danced in the Street or his UB40-esque version of Red Red Wine from the Live in America album. But no, this is a good album. I've enjoyed going back to this morning. So I've reviewed 5 albums of Neil Diamond's on this channel beforehand, so they are in order. Before I go through the ranking order: Velvet Gloves and Spit, Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show, This, Beautiful Noise, and September Morn. So in terms of their rankings of the 5 I've done, as I see it today, so that's without going back to those reviews. I've done kind of track ratings on those reviews before, but I'm just going to look in terms of a ranking of these 5. So top of the list still has to be Beautiful Noise. I don't think anything beats this in Neil Diamond's catalogue. I think Just For You possibly comes close, because that's almost like a compilation album, how good that is. Second on that list is going to be this album, Stones. I had a great difficulty in choosing between this, Velvet Gloves, and Brother Love. And the logic I used really is something that Phil Aston said on Now Spinning magazine, that your album rankings isn't necessarily which album is best. There's a difference between best and favourite. And the reason this is more of a favourite album is because I probably reach for it more than the other 2. I look at the other 2 and I think the songs I really like on both of the other 2, but I probably reach for this more as an album to listen to. So that's going to rank second. Third is, and I don't know how I ranked these at the time, so this is just as I see today. Third on my list is going to be Velvet Gloves and Spit. Velvet Gloves and Spit. Where's it gone? Velvet. I've got 3 versions of Velvet Gloves and Spit. There we go. This was the one I was going to show first. Ready? Velvet Gloves and Spit. This is an album that I have got 3 versions of. I'm a bit of a hypocrite, really, because I scoff at other people. You know, like those people who've got 20 versions of the same album. You just go, why? But these are all different cover variations. So this isn't actually the original cover, but it's close-ish. This is a Dutch reissue I found in a charity shop. Unfortunately, it says poster included. There isn't a poster at all, because I have got a vacant spot on the wall, and a Neil Diamond poster would just look cool, wouldn't it? Maybe. So that was a Dutch repress, and then this is the 1970 reissue, which features the reworking of Shiloh. So that's going to be third on my list. And then fourth is going to be But probably higher on the list of best Neil Diamond covers, Brother Love's Travelling Salvation Show, and that's album covers, not song covers. And then finally, quite a way down, but has still got its good moments, is this September Morn. Those are the 5 I've reviewed on the channel, but it is worth, I would say, going back to watch some of those if you haven't seen those reviews before. I feel like I want to get into a bit of a routine of reviewing Neil Diamond albums, so I think this one is going to be next. I don't necessarily want to go in chronological order, because that could get quite boring after a bit. So I'm going to jump around the catalogue a bit. This is going to be the one I think I'm going to go for next, because from what I've seen, this gets a bit of a rough time, and I do enjoy listening to this. So that will probably be my next Neil Diamond review, and the first time I think I've shown it on the channel would be a good time to show this off, my new-ish Neil Diamond t-shirt. I hadn't got a Neil Diamond t-shirt, and that troubled me, and I couldn't really find anything, but I found this on eBay very, very cheap. So this is from the 50th year anniversary tour, which features, you've got the Hot August Night shot there, you've got the more glittery years, sort of, I guess that's kind of Love at the Greek period, you've got later period, that's an early period, and then you've got on the back a nice, I can't quite remember what it is on the back now, but you will see. I just didn't talk in that few seconds, because when I looked at a video I'd done previously with my back to the camera, you could hardly hear me, so it wasn't worth me speaking anyway. But that is a rather nice Neil Diamond shirt, and I've put that on purely for this review. So surely me going to all that effort alone deserves a like. But just as a kind of summary, what would I say about this album? It's a good addition to the Neil Diamond catalogue. Is it one of his top albums? I would say not, purely because of the amount of covers that are on this. It feels like I have to somewhat mark it down for that, but it'll be interesting as I go through this, if I do get to review all of his albums, where it stacks up. I'm going to guess it's not going to end up in the top 5, but looking at these Velvet Gloves and Spit and Brother Love being lower down, I think, oh blimey, there must be something that goes above this. But I'd probably say it's going to be between kind of 6 to 10 bracket, I would have thought, in Neil Diamond's canon. But I've really enjoyed going to re-listen to this morning, so I'd encourage that you do the same and let me know what you think of this album down in the comments, and leave a like as well. And if you would like to see more Neil Diamond content, I do cover vast genres of music on this channel, if you want to call them that. Well, vast genres, I wouldn't say it's that vast, but I do go from thing to thing. But it seems that a lot of my subscribers around here are Neil Diamond subscribers, and given that Neil is my favourite artist, I'll indulge in that and produce more Neil Diamond videos. Those seem to be the ones that do well, and I always enjoy talking about the Jewish Elvis. So I want to do a little bit more of that on this channel. But subscribing really helps the channel out as well. Like the video if you've enjoyed. Comment your thoughts down below. And hopefully, because it's been a while since I've done the last album review, albeit I did review the Hot August Night live NYC, but I'm not going to include that in my rankings as such, because I'm just going to include the studio albums in that ranking list. But let's hope that it's a little bit quicker than a year or two until the next one, eh? Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you for your company. I hope you've enjoyed. I've been Toby Jones from Toby Jones Talks Music. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.